Hey, how you doing, Slash?
All right, how are you?
I can't complain, but if I did, nobody'd listen, and I'm just here to talk with a childhood idol of mine. So I will try not to fangirl this entire interview.
Well, check
Uh,
it out. We were just talking about Funko Pops, and I have a bunch of them behind me, and you have a bunch behind you. So
mhm.
already we're off to a good start.
Hey, you know what? And I've got a Funko Pop of yours that eventually I got to get signed one day when I meet you in person, so I can add it to the wall behind me.
Ah, no,
But
I'd be honored.
we're here to talk about something cool. You've got Orgy of the Damned coming out May 17th. And then literally right after that, you got S.E.R.P.E.N.T Festival kicking off July 5th with some pretty big names in the blues world. You got Robert Randolph, Larkin Poe, ZZ Ward, just to name a few, which, by the way, buy your tickets now, serpentfestival.com. Walk me through selecting these artists for this festival.
Well, just picking up, blues artists that I'm really fond of. So there's a lot of young, artists out there like Samantha Fish and Larkin Poe and Jackie Vincent. Those are all, and then there's some guys that I've known for a while. Eric Gales is a phenomenal guitar player, blues
Mhm.
guy. And Warren Haynes, who obviously from Allman Brothers and Government Mule and a million other things that he's done. So these are just artists. Robert Randolph, who is just a phenomenal slide player, and so they're all the artists that I like. So
Right.
I just reached out to them to see if they wanted to be on this thing. So
For sure. And I mean, we've got several stops. There's some in Seattle, Dallas, Nashville, where we're located at as well. The question I have for you is what was the most rewarding aspect of, creating this album, Orgy of the Damned? You reach into your early inspirations and musical obsessions while recording this, especially in terms of like utilizing a smaller setup with basic equipment. How did this exploration influence your playing on the album?
well, I mean, this was something that I've been doing in a sort of a live capacity. I used to have this blues cover band called Slash's Blues Ball back in the 90s. And we actually toured around and had a great time, but it was a very loose, throw together, fun thing that we were doing. And I always wanted to record it. So I finally got around to like going, okay, I'm going to record this. So that of itself was really exciting for me to get the original guys together and to be able to look at that old set list and pick some songs and and record an album. And then bringing all these different singers into it that I really admire and in a lot of cases been heavily influenced by, and just getting it all to come together. It was just a really great experience and a really satisfying project,
Yeah.
and fun.
Absolutely. And of course, we cannot wait for May 17th when Orgy of the Damned is getting released. I mean, we've already heard a couple of the tracks, the one with Chris Stapleton, Brian Johnson, which we'll talk about here in a second. But what would a teenage Slash think about you recording a blues record with the likes of Billy Gibbons, Iggy Pop, Chris Stapleton, and two of the greatest frontmen in rock history, Paul Rodgers of Bad Company and Brian Johnson of AC/DC?
I wouldn't have believed it. I would have basically said that's not real. There's no way I could have imagined that back then. But a lot of these artists I was listening to back then, so that's why it would have been seemed so unrealistic.
Right, for sure. So how did this all come about? Do you like send like a group text to everybody and say, "Hey, I'm working on this album," or do you just like randomly call people like Chris Stapleton and he's just like, "Hey, man, I'm doing an album. You want to come sing on it and lay your vocals down?"
Yeah, the latter is how I did it. But the former, well, could you imagine if you could actually do that? Just put a group text together and put everybody on it and go, "Hey, I'm doing this record." But no, I would figure out what song it was that I wanted to do and then who I thought should sing it
Mhm.
and figure out how I was going to get in touch with that person. Some of these artists I know well, some of them I don't know that well, and some of them I didn't know at all. So, depending on what the status was as far as the relationship was concerned, figure out how to get in touch with them, and then just call them up and say, I'm doing this blues cover record, and I'm covering this song, and I thought maybe you'd be cool, to sing on it. What do you think? And fortunately, I picked the right people for each song so that they
Mhm.
really related to the song and they had some history with it, and they were excited to do it.
Right, for sure. And of course, the album is out May 17th, which you could still pre-order it right now. Orgy of the Damned. And then, of course, S.E.R.P.E.N.T Festival kicking off right after that on July 5th. Now, something that I was talking to a friend of mine who we both kind of go back and forth when it comes to guitar talk. You're most known and associated with the Les Paul, right? But you did use some other tools in the studio, for example, using a Gibson ES-335 for Killing Floor. What does a semi-hollow like a 335 bring to blues music that a Les Paul doesn't?
That's how to explain that verbally is a little bit tough. The 335 has a certain kind of it's a little cleaner, the separation between the strings, even though it's got humbuckers, maybe something about the hollow body factor really gives it a little bit more clarity than the average Les Paul. There's a certain throatiness to the notes. I was just playing the one today, and it's just different than a Les Paul. And I really dig them. And I've actually been playing them for a while, but I only played it in a live context back when we were doing Velvet Revolver. It never sort of lent itself to when me playing with the Conspirators or with Guns N' Roses. But when I was doing this record, I just got a really cool 1963 335, and I got it right before we started doing the record. I've been playing it a lot, and then when we started pre-production, it just sort of fell into being on a bunch of different songs. But I also used a couple Les Pauls on the record, but then I also used a couple Fenders too.
Oh wow.
That type of song just lent itself to Strat or a Telly. So
yeah, absolutely, for sure. Now, you look at the album, we talk about it, Orgy of the Damned, out May 17th. Were there some songs that didn't make the cut? And if so, is there enough material for, an Orgy of the Damned 2?
Well, we're doing a tour, so there's going to be a lot of material during the tour because it's like a 2-hour show. So it's an hour 45. So we'll do songs from the record, and then there'll be a lot of other stuff that's not on the record. There was a lot of stuff that was shaved off the set list from 1998. So in other words, when we were making the record, there was a lot of songs from back then we didn't do for different reasons. There were some songs that were cool and fun to play live in a live setting, but would be sort of corny or maybe a little bit cliche to actually record and present them on record. So I just picked the songs that had the most influence on me, that were either just borderline overdone, but you could get away with it, or some songs that were way more obscure that people don't really cover. But as far as doing another one of these kind of records, when you do a record with a bunch of different singers, I've done one once before back in 2010. It was like my first real, what you call solo record, a bunch of different singers on it. It's not something that I normally would do a second time, but on the blues record, because it was a different type of thing, it just seemed like a good idea. I don't know if I would go make the next blues record the same kind of deal. I'd probably do something with originals,
Yeah, for sure. Would that, if if you decide to do that next album with originals, would it be, would you go with a full band, or would it be maybe an acoustic album?
I'm more of an electric guy, so I don't mind doing an acoustic song or two here and there, but I doubt I would do a whole record of acoustics.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Now, something that's, I guess, kind of been talked about here recently when it comes to music, there's been a lot in the news with AI and using artists' voices and music to create new music, right? Recently, Randy Travis actually did that. He put out a new song with AI using his voice to sing it. How do you think, I guess, moving forward, would AI influence the sound and creativity within music?
I'm not super excited about this new development, only because I just know that people, for the most part, are going to use it so much that it's going to, for one, it's going to be confusing and misleading. And then the other is it's just going to be like too much of the same kind of look or sound for different things. I see it happening already. But, for me, I'm the guy that likes to go into a studio and record a band live and do it analog, like this record. So the idea of AI, I can't think of any application where it makes any sense to me for what it is that I do. And I'm interested to see who comes up with something really great and unique and like useful for me. But having AI reproduce anything or actually produce anything original in terms of music does not really thrill me. You can have it write lyrics, you can have it do anything but the work. But you doing the actual work, and it doesn't thrill me.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I mean, AI technology is a scary thing. I mean, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but when it comes to creativity, it's going to be very interesting to see how
I
things
mean,
play out.
always consider the technology itself is a human achievement. I mean, it's amazing. And technology all the way, down the line is always showing some great possibilities with things, but it's how people use them,
Hmm.
at the end of the day as a mass, like application. That's where you got to start worrying.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Slash, I know your time is very busy today, and you got to go make the rounds. And they say never to meet your childhood hero. Well, I'm sort of meeting mine right now. So thank you for taking the time out and talking with me, and look forward to seeing you on the road soon.
I'm flattered. Well, it's good talking to you, and I enjoyed our conversation, and especially looking at the Funkos and the belts.
Thank you. I'm a little jealous of everything behind you as well. So maybe next time we can talk Funkos for an
Let's
hour
talk
or
about
something.
that. Yeah. All right, man. Well,
For
listen,
sure.
have a good one in the meantime.
Thank you very much. You too, sir.